Hi viewers, Sudheer here, and today I am going to talk about the most awaited movie of 2021, Karnan. This is Mari Selvaraj's second movie, as all of us know, and he had built up a reputation for himself just in his debut movie itself, Pariyaram Perumal, and all the while that Karnan was in the making, there was a lot of hype and a lot of expectation that was built up over this movie. Right? I wanted to watch the movie the first day, the first show, but then because of some changes in my schedule, I ended up watching the second day. I watched it at PVR Bangalore, and I would say that for anybody who's thinking about watching this movie, please do give it a theater experience because it deserves it, right? And I decided to do so instead of waiting for the OTT release because I do appreciate Santhosh Narayanan's work over the ages, and I had an inkling that the musical score, the background and the songs, and it deserved a theatrical experience to it, and you will not be disappointed. So what does Karnan offer us? I'm sure that most of you have already seen quite a lot of reviews on it and are already familiar with the narrative or have an idea as to how it is going to be. So what did I feel about it? And that's what I'd like to share. So I would begin my reaction with thanking the three most important players in this movie: Mari Selvaraj, Santhosh Narayanan, and of course Dhanush. Kalaipuli Tanu, who produced it, also deserves a lot of appreciation because from what I understood through Mari's and others' interviews, it seemed that he had given them a free hand in deciding the set and deciding the proceedings of the shoot, and which is a huge inspiration for any director or any team, right? So thanks to the team is how I would like to start off my review. I think that what Karnan is probably one of, I would say, the most difficult project that any director can undertake or take up in a country like India, in the media space, in the industry, in the movie space, right? It's not to say that others have not done it, but I think that Karnan is doubly different, doubly difficult, right? See, all of us know the social setting from which the protagonist in Pariyaram Perumal comes from, and Karnan actually takes off from that same surroundings, but what Mari Selvaraj himself said is that it tries to achieve what Pariyan could not do, right? Or that character which invited the society to empathize with the situation and successfully could do it, did not bring about the rage and the angst and the energy and the aggression or the will to power that any rebelling community would have. And this was an argument against Mari Selvaraj for quite a while, and he had taken it into account, and in his own words, this is his answer to it, right? And as I was telling before, I think that Karnan is the most difficult project. Why? Because unlike Pariyan, Karnan is a hero. Pariyan is the lead protagonist of the story who takes the audience along with him and presents and narrates the story in such a beautiful, loving, empathetic manner that the whole world was willing to cry along with him. And that was an elevating experience for many, a mellowing experience for a lot of us, right? And a transformative one in many ways, right? So this was what Pariyan achieved. But when it comes to Karnan, it takes a different route. And I would say that in spite of taking a different route, he still manages to take the audience along with him, right? And this is a huge achievement for any director. Why is Karnan a difficult project? Because Karnan is a hero. He's not just a victim of society's trappings, but he's also a hero who kind of rebels, who fights, who stands tall, and holds his head high and fights against the oppressors, against the system that discriminates, that pushes him down, right? And while doing so, in my view, I think that Mari has been successful in taking the audience along with him and almost instilling the same amount of rage that a Karnan feels, or a Parian could have felt, or should have felt, right? Now, this is what I feel. Why is Karnan again very difficult? Because being a hero, when you present a hero to the audience, you are faced with the challenge of packaging your hero in such a way that the audience takes it up, right? In Indian movies, we have stereotypes of heroes. We have the different formats. They come in the six-pack one, the orphan, the one who curls up the mustache, the one who has the legacy, the looks, and somebody who has royal blood, and all these things come into play. And these are elements of heroism that we are traditionally served. And a lot of us might be happy with that part of it. So when Mari Selvaraj decides to present Karnan as a hero, he does face a challenge wherein he has to project a hero. At the same time, he just cannot make it unrealistic in terms of his surroundings and his background. Okay. For those who watch the movie, and even the ones who have seen the promos or even the posters, you would have noticed that Karnan comes across in one of the most commonest attires that you can see in Tamil Nadu. He wears a plain, simple design, the typical checkered shirt and the blue-green checkered lungi, and walks around with no theatrical or nothing dramatic or nothing emphatic about his presence. Now, this is a very difficult thing. So when you see somebody like that on the roads, that is a person who does not have a face, just a shadow, a silhouette that walks across, right? To be noticeable, you need to have elements that are marketable, right? And to make it a hero, you need to have more emphatic, dazzling elements. Karnan doesn't have any of these. So this is a very, very difficult thing. On the same lines, many of us would have noticed that Karnan is presented in the movie in a very subtle manner, and even at different moments where he enters, it is not always carried off with an emphatic BGM, a signature tune, or some war cry. Nothing like that, right? It's pretty simple. Yeah. So bringing about a heroism in a character, and without the aid of conventional, stereotypical, marketable, saleable elements, and that too presenting a story that is mostly taboo and mostly looked down upon, and with so many factors against it. The way that Mari has been successful to present it, I think it is just commendable and deserves a huge round of applause, is what I feel. One of the striking aspects of this movie is the amount of symbolism that is used across the movie. Mari uses different images, different narratives, different scenes, different characters, like the Kutti Devam, the child goddess. You have the countryside donkey with its front limbs tied. You have a stray horse right, that lands up in the village. Right? You have Karnan sitting atop the elephant as a symbol of pride. You have so many elements that come into play, and the way that Mari Selvaraj is able to tie all these things in the narrative, and that is almost poetic. One of the most striking scenes in the movie is the pre-break scene, and this was talked about even before the movie was released, and I was waiting for it, and it did do justice to it. It is a goosebumpish moment, and it's actually too long a time frame to call it a moment. So it's a goosebumpish phase that you go through just before the break, and this is one brilliant piece of genius that Mari Selvaraj has produced, where he brings in all these symbols and elements of narration he had built up over these in the first half, the beginning of the movie. You have different elements of the story, the mythical element, the mystical element, the random element. I mean, all these things coming together at the same time and coming to a head, and it builds up as a crescendo during a fight scene. And the fight scene, the way that it is choreographed, that's kind of realistic, but what adds to the whole experience is the storyline that builds up behind it, along with it. And one of the most classic scenes in the movie, I'm not sure whether it can be compared to Battleship Potemkin, Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin, but I would say that one of the most beautiful montage scenes that has ever happened in Indian movies is where he is able to blend all these characters, the narratives of all these characters, visually into one single frame. And it is a wow moment. You know what? A wow is a very short word, so it is really a wow moment. And I almost said that when I was watching the movie, as and when I was going through that scene, I'm like, wow, this is what I did. Right? And I don't know, that's my experience, what. I'm not sure whether any one of you shared the same, but this is what I felt. I forgot to mention swords. The sword, which is again a historical element, a symbol that has historical importance that Mari has used, which is connected to the village pride and the heroism within the masculinity, the macho culture or the macho lineage of their history. Right? So that's an element that I forgot to mention while mentioning symbols. One of the highlights of the movie, and I'm sure all of you would be already aware of it, is Santhosh Narayanan's musical score. All the songs were already famous by the time the movie was released, but the way that Santhosh is able to do justice to the narrative, bring about the desired feel by adding in the right mix of sounds or the lack of sound sometime, and these are elements which he has done amazingly well. And I am more and more respectful of this person. I have been following him for quite a long time and do appreciate most of his works, because that's for a different video or for a different discussion, but I think he's the most talented music director in the country right now. So that's an area where this movie scores really well, and even the simple duet that Dhanush has sung is such a very likable number and blends in really well with the storyline. Okay, that's something good. So like what most of us know, this is a story that is set in rural Tamil Nadu, in some part of Tirunelveli district, and it happens in a village in Tamil Nadu. Just got reminded of a review about Pariyerum Perumal when Mari released it. One of the reviews that came about in Kerala one of the Malayalam newspaper was something about the caste discrimination that happens in Tamil Nadu is what what this reviewer had to say. And I was like, well, like what the fuck, right? Because that's true of any place in India or any place where you have these kind of discriminations, based on your birth. You can expect such things to happen. And this loser of a reviewer goes around to kind of define it in a small hamlet or a small, village in Tamil Nadu, and to save himself from the blemish of recognizing the same in his house, in his family. I am reminded again of quite a lot of reviews that you can read under the YouTube videos. If you go and just watch any of these videos regarding this movie, Mari's interview or the movie's promos, any of these, a huge chunk of it is very appreciative and really, they just go around commending, congratulating the whole team. But there's a strong theme underlying most of the others, and the theme is this: that this guy always talks about caste, and எப்போ பார்த்தாலும் ஜாதி வெறி பிடிச்சவனா நடப்பேங்கடா, எப்போ பார்த்தாலும் ஜாதியை பற்றி மட்டும்தான் பேசுவேன். He always walks around with this casteist thoughts is what these comments generally kind of blame. And there was okay, I need to mention this. There was a really funny thing that happened. In FB, was it FB or WhatsApp? I don't know. It was a long forward that was shared by quite a few, where they were talking about how Paranjit and Mari Selvaraj are kind of polluting the environment in the industry, and they started with a very patronizing tone, telling that okay, they did do a good job. Even Mari did a good job with Pariyar and Perumal without violence. He talked about caste, but right now he's scaled up, he's become arrogant, and right now he's okay to use violence. So it goes on to describe the whole thing, in understandable terms. And at the end of it, the call, that's the best part, the call is to ban these two from the industry. How cool is that? If you ask me, that is the success of this movie. It has touched, or it has hurt, it has singed and burnt where it should. That's why you get such random comments where the revulsion, the hatred is so kind of embedded in the system, but that the fact that these guys or such narratives can be set out in the open is shocking enough for them to ask for a boycott, to ask them to shun, which is the same as making them untouchables, right? Now, talking about violence and caste, these very same reviewers were probably the same assholes who were singing Ayyangari Veetu Alage and Mami Chinna Mami with Rajnikant's Veera. They're pretty happy singing that. They didn't have an issue with that, right? And they were okay, and they actually had goosebumps when they were watching Chinna Gaundar, probably, right? Or even Tevar Magan, right? So these are the same guys who felt really good about it, and suddenly when you have the other side standing up and doing the same, that's when you feel that it's crossing the limit, and you ask them to leave the stage. Understandable, loser, understandable. About violence. The scenes that are violent in the movie, the scenes are pretty intense and kind of a little longish, and it is understood that Mari had decided to make it so, to kind of let the audience experience and go through the pain that some of the ones who really faced it would have gone through, right? So he decided to do it that way, right? So that is an honest element of the story, a part of the narrative that needs to be there for us to feel that part. Now these guys who are asking to boycott the movie because of violence, just go dig deep into their viewing history. I'm sure that most of it would be violent. These are the guys who are okay to use violence in Onion. No problem. They're okay to use violence in Gentlemen. Yeah, to clean up the system when it comes from a different quarters. Violence is good. Violence is justified. And in fact, violence is the only way, as most of the heroes say. அப்படி சொன்னா புரியாதவனுக்கெல்லாம் இப்படி தான் சொல்லணும். That's what most of the heroes say. I think Karnan is saying the same thing in this movie. So that's the answer to the violence part of the movie. I think those of us who just cannot digest this part can just take a walk, right? Can opt out and just watch a different movie, right? Go watch some other romantic thriller, right? So, are there any drawbacks or a few things that could be improved in the movie? I think yes. One of the areas which I thought was a little off was the dubbing part. I think I experienced, I could sense quite a lot of, loss of sync when it came to the dubbing department, and many a times, the lips did not sync with the sounds behind them. So that wasn't a good thing to experience. That's there. And I also felt, this is just, a very unobtrusive or a non-critical criticism, all right? I think that technically the cameras were superior in Asuran. I think so. I mean, the clarity, the color, depth, and such elements, I thought that these were much, much better in Asuran, at Vetrimaran's Asuran. Okay, this is not to say that I had a loss of feeling or loss of connectedness when it was presented this way, but I think that was a department that would have added more richness to the story, richness to the experience, not to the story, to the experience. Okay, so that is that. So why should you watch Karnan? Why should you? I think that all of us would benefit from watching the movie because of the amount of transference that could happen for any one of us who's on the other side of the system, who is probably privileged enough to ignore these things, hence until now, who are privileged enough to ignore these kind of social realities. I think they're the ones who might benefit from watching it. Now, if you're not a die-hard casteist asshole, I think you would be moved to understand what's happening on the other side. So, what's my verdict on Karnan? My shortest verdict is just go watch the movie at the theaters. That's my shortest verdict. But if I were to give a critical view on or a snapshot, a synopsis of what I think Karnan has done to movies and done to us, it's this. Karnan has notched up the standards of storytelling in Indian movies. Karnan has scaled up or made the canvas a little more bigger. Storytelling, the way that it has, Mari has been successful in blending the different elements of narrative. These are all kind of textbookish for a new director. When you're looking at movie making, if you want to go to the next level in movie making, you better watch this movie and understand the amount of genius that's required to blend in this much, right? It's never plain. It's never a straight line. It is always different streams of stories, different narratives coming from different parts and blending, right? That is a big feat. It's a big feat. The other thing that Karnan has done is to make heroes a little more closer to us. Heroes in movies, they thrill us, they really kind of give us goosebumps, and that's all true. But through Karnan, Mari has given us a hero who is so close to us and who's so just around us that we tend to empathize and we tend to travel along with his pain, and we feel the same anger and try to kind of understand the justice in his actions, right? Well, this is never a call to break the rules or break the law, but it is more of an invitation to understand where the protagonist is coming from, where the pain is coming from, right? So in that way, Karnan has been successful. My shortest verdict for Karnan is just go watch the movie, right? Go to the theaters, watch it in a theater near you, and have a good time, right? That's about it. Take care. Bye. And please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.